all right. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another episode of the Life's a Botch podcast. It's your boy, well, you already know, the Prince of Botch, man. Your boy Dwayne. We are in the building with yet another dope episode of Life's a Botch. I believe this is episode 29. We almost at 30 episodes, man. It's crazy how fast we're rolling with this thing, man. Like, it's just crazy. But once again, you already know we back. We got guests on top of guests on top of guests. And I am so happy to introduce a really, really dope guest in the house today. And man, really, this guy doesn't need much introduction. I really don't have to do much introduction. But, you know, your boy likes to give as brief, dope introductions as possible. So, man, allow me to introduce a gentleman that a lot of people really, really know from one of my favorite tag teams. You know what I mean? A tag team I know as the Prime Time Players, baby, because we're getting millions of dollars. But, you know, you may also know him from this really, really dope group. You know, I believe it was a really dope group that took over the WWE at one good time by the name of the Nexus. Yes, the good old Nexus, man. Yeah, that's a throwback for you guys out there because I know I really do enjoy that group myself. But also, man, I mean, what more can I say? This man is a former WWE Tag Team Champion. My friend, my man, Mr. Darren Young, also known as Fred Rosser. How you doing, good sir?
No, I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me. I always say, don't die with the story and you tell it. And what an introduction. I do a podcast myself, Pro and Bro Wrestling. And our most recent guest was actually a former member of the Nexus, Michael Tarver. So probably the first member of the Nexus was Heath. So I'm kind of running it down, interviewing each one as to who my favorite was. Heath and I always be boys, you know, so he was like really, really my close friend. I was close with everyone, but Heath was number one, Tarver was number two. So having an introduction every week doing a podcast, it's challenging, man. It's challenging. So a lot of respect for you and thanks for having me.
Hey, man, you know, it's definitely a thing. People have been telling me I kind of have a knack for this thing. And I guess a couple of episodes in, I kind of just kept it going and said, you know what, we're going to do this thing. But man, welcome to the show. It is so great. Such an honor to have you and interview and talk with you today, man. And wow, I don't even know where to really get started. Let's just start with, how have you been, man? Like, how is life treating you? How have you been holding up in the current pandemic situation we've been dealing with and kind of rebuilding from lately? Like, what's been going on with you, sir?
Well, before I give you the 411 on what's been going on with me, for me, doing a podcast is like therapy because I've been on the outside. I've experienced it on the inside. Now I'm back on the outside, kind of, sort of. I did their recent YouTube show, network show, The Bump. So I still have a relationship with WWE. I'm not on the ban list, you know? So for me, doing a podcast is like therapy. So like I said, I say daily, don't die with the story and you tell it. So, you know, what's been keeping me sane during this pandemic is my family, my god babies, and get my workouts in. Today's like my off day. My Sundays are my Monday, but I still get my stretching in and all that stuff because since the pandemic, I haven't wrestled since December. So that whole saying, if you don't use it, you lose it. One of the first things to tighten up on athletes are their hips and stiffness. So there's no ring available for me to kind of keep my wind up. So I've got my foot ladder. I've got my bands. I haven't been to any gyms yet because I just wanted to, you know, wait it out because numbers have been spiking. So again, what's been keeping me sane are my workouts and being with my god babies. I always say health as well.
That is awesome, man. And I mean, you know, fitness, you know, every athlete I've had so far that I've been able to talk to pretty much since this has started and what's been going on since, man, I've really just loved to hear their stories of how they've just been, you know, keeping in shape and staying motivated because a season like this can definitely try to take you off your motivation. And I'm like you, man. I'm thankful for a platform like this, a podcasting platform to just talk to dope people like yourself and really just like have these one-on-ones, man, where it's like, hey, let's love life, enjoy life. And I love that motto that you have. You know what I mean? Like that is such a great motto to live by because everybody got some type of story to tell, you know, and you want to make sure you keep on telling it. You know what I mean? So that is so dope. So man, like what keep updating us on what's been going on with you, man. I mean, I'm glad to see podcasting is definitely keeping you in a very humble and safe place, man. It's a beautiful thing to chat and talk to people. But you know, what's some goals, you know, or what's some things you plan on doing once as things are getting back to a semi-norm here?
Well, one of the goals I just accomplished before the pandemic was I can honestly say I'm the first WWE superstar to ever step onto a off-Broadway theater stage.
Ooh.
All of January, February, up until Valentine's Day, I was in New York working on a musical about
Yes.
marriage equality called Little House on the Ferry. And at the moment, we're looking for a live streaming network to pick it up. So that was a lot of fun doing, very tiring. My work ethic is a little bit different than people that have experience in off Broadway. And what it is it's a reality TV project. It's reality TV and theater go head to head. And they document my life, fish out of water store. Hey, let's take this wrestler and put him in a musical where I had no experience singing, dancing, only acting is from WWE. So this is like, I'm used to live combat theater, and this is a whole different ball game. And I'm 36. At 26, I wouldn't have taken on the project because one, I wasn't out publicly, and two, theater gets this bad stigma that people that do theater are gay and all that stuff. So at 36, I'm like, why not? And one of my biggest inspirations to go forward with doing this musical was Chris Jericho, because he had experience in Dancing with the Stars and all that stuff. So I looked at it as, well, if he can do it, so can I. And he was a big inspiration, and he knows that. So right before the pandemic, that was an incredible moment for me that I accomplished. I hit a home run with it. It was in front of a packed theater crowd. And you can tell when you're doing your job when I'm at a stage 18 years plus in the business where we listen to the people. If they're not reacting, no need to rush and do more. Just be calm, be cool, tell that story. Eventually, if you're a good storyteller, people get behind it. And in a musical, I could hear the people because it was a love triangle and I was one of the leads chasing love. And I could hear the people cheering for me, you know, after I did my solo by myself on stage, a solo that I hit a home run with. And to hear the people cheer for me made me very emotional. I'm a grown man, 36. And when I walked off the stage, people that have experience in theater, I went up to them. I was like, look at my eyes. I'm crying my eyes out. I got to be on stage in a couple more minutes. I'm putting eye drops in because my eyes are bloodshot because I'm so happy that I had just hit a home run on a solo. And the girls that worked with me said, well, this is why we do this. And it's the same thing with wrestling. I do what I do. Sometimes I say, why do I beat myself up? Well, it's because my fight, is much more bigger than in the ring now. It's outside of the ring, fighting bigotry and hatred and trying to be the voice of the voiceless when it comes to not only just the LGBTQ community, but anyone that gets bullied for various reasons. I might get bullied because you have a speech impediment. You might get bullied because of the color of your skin. But you know what? In order to be strong and successful, you got to block the hate. And that's when my whole movement comes into play. It's the next middle finger, it's the equality for all sign. Like, you tell me I can achieve my dreams, but instead of flipping them off, block the hate. And it's a universal movement that, it's just it's not about me, it's about the masses. There's
Yeah.
7 billion plus people on this planet. So anything I share on my social media, it's to motivate and educate the masses. You know, I've got a lot of work to do. I'll share the same block the hate picture with me doing this with a bunch of kids or by
Mhm.
myself. I'll share it constantly because those 7 billion plus people didn't see it. So we've got work to do. And I always say, block the hate, spread the word, strengthen numbers, because I can't do it by
Yes.
myself.
Yes.
Um, there are tons of superstars. You know, I always say you have some good dance partners and you have some not so good dance partners, but the ones
Yeah.
that mattered, like Randy Orton, Big
Yeah.
Show, Sheamus,
Yes.
Titus, my main man, those guys made it a lot easier for me to come out and walk into a locker room and be comfortable.
Yeah.
Coming out, I became more friends with Randy Orton than ever. You know, I haven't been with
Yeah.
WWE since 2017, and anytime I can go backstage and say, "Hey, Randy, you mind if we get a money shot?" You know, he's it takes 20 minutes to take a picture because he's worried about if it's right for me. You know, that's the type of
Mhm.
person he is. You know,
Yeah.
is the pose right? Should it be like this? Should it be like this? Like
Yeah.
Randy doesn't have to do that, but he's real. You know, and
Yeah.
someone like that has my back and a plethora of other people. That's all you need when it comes to the support system. Because
Yes.
I always say that if they don't know you personally, don't take it personal.
Come on, man. And that is so awesome to really hear. And that was a great transition. But before I even get a little bit more into what your
Yeah.
coming out story, I just want
Yeah,
to
I'm
touch on
sorry.
the fact.
Sorry, I skip around. I always say CTE, CTE. So when I
Is
get
it?
going, I get going.
Yeah.
Sometimes I gotta pull myself back. So yeah, just like with my podcast, for me,
Hmm.
there's no format. We skip
Yeah.
around.
Skip around.
So
Yeah.
yeah, but you keep us on track, please.
Yeah, hey, no, we love that, man, because I love allowing the guests to tell stories, man. It's a beautiful thing. I love to listen, but then my listeners know I'll talk too. But I mean, for me, I just with these questions, man, I definitely had to touch on a point that you made when you were talking about stepping into Broadway for the first time like that, and it's such a great thing to see you thriving beyond wrestling because what's really important is a lot of times I know as a fan and someone who really like continues to learn about the business. I've been watching wrestling since I was, man, probably like 7, and I've always been into it, and I've always been knowledgeable, but like to learn things and then really wonder about those that when they leave the company, and they you wonder like, okay, is there a withdrawal stage? Some people kind of go through a relapse, just all kind of things where it's like, man, what am I gonna do now? In the same cases like football, NFL, NBA, when you're not doing what you love anymore, you kind of get into these things. And I know some have a hard time, and it breaks my heart when I've seen some of the stories of people who have been like suffering. But then I love the success stories of people who are like, like yourself or like a Ryback or somebody that's, left the business sometime. It's only been a few years and they're just succeeding and flourishing in their own way. So it's great to see you step into something like that, man. And I'm wishing complete best for you as that continues to grow, man, because I know that's going to be phenomenal. Broadway is never an easy thing to do. So I can only imagine because for a second there, I was about to be like, Mr. Rosser, you got a voice that I don't know about, man? Like, was there a hidden talent there somewhere? Like.
I wish I was like Brian McKnight or Tyrese. I shouldn't mention Tyrese's name.
Yeah.
The Rock hates him, you know. But anyway,
Oh
anyway,
man.
and by the way, it was Sing Talk. So
Sing
that's
talk. Okay.
Sing Talk. If you know what that is, I
Yeah.
learned it recently. But I always say Michael Jordan can't play forever. Not saying that I'm Michael Jordan of wrestling, but there
Hmm.
comes a time when my grandfather always says, "One monkey don't stop no show," and my
Yeah.
grandfather just turned 95 years old, so
Oh wow.
he's like a lot of his wisdom. I take and I use. I use when I speak to the masses all over the world, sharing my
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, you know, to be able to just step onto Broadway, we
Hmm.
all have those hidden blocks, and then
Yeah.
once we are able to just let loose and open up and unlock those blocks, you get access to cool stuff. You get
Yeah.
access to moments that you didn't think that you could accomplish, but did. So
Yeah.
uh, with my social media, I always tell people I want people to see me on my social media or in the ring and say, well, if he can do it, so can I. And
Yeah.
me going back to the whole Michael Jordan can't play forever.
Mhm.
You know, nothing lasts with WWE. It's the
Yeah.
revolving door. You know, revolving
Yeah.
door. Everyone always comes back.
Yeah.
Uh, so I had to keep it moving, and I've done some of my best work on the independents, working
Yes.
quality, not quantity. I've done all
Yes.
the quantity shows. When you first start off wrestling, I
Mhm.
say stumble and fall, get up, stumble and fall. Just keep doing it, keep getting those reps in, and then
Come
there
on.
comes a point where quality is more important than quantity. And
Yes.
for example, Jake Atlas, who's making moves in NXT.
Mhm.
I've had great work with him. I've had great work with Sean Spears.
Yes.
The one thing about Sean Spears is that, you know, the biggest the biggest reward you can get from a peer is that when you're done with the match and you come to the back and then he follows you after and he says, man, I needed that. That
Yeah.
that that means a lot. That means that, man, you made him work. You put
Yes.
in the work. Everything clicked. Sean's
Yes.
great at what he does. I'm great at what I do in the ring. So when you get
Yes.
two people that just know their way around the ring, you create magic. And
Yes.
again, I've had some of my best work where I'm not doing 5 to 7 minute matches, because when you do 5 to 7 minute matches on TV, you don't realize it, but to us, it's a sprint. You know,
Yes.
it's a shorter time, but when do you ever see Randy in a 5 or 7 minute match? Usually, when you
Mm.
get 20, 25 minutes, you can take your time with the reactions. There's
Yes.
beats and moments, not only on a Broadway stage, not
Mhm.
only behind a camera on a set,
Mhm.
also in the ring, you know? So
Uh-huh.
you have to do commentary in your head. You have to kind of like, when you're on the independents, just take your time, tell a story, and that's why Randy's one of the best. Uh, and that's why I've had some of my best work on independents, because I'm not doing sprint matches, which are
Yes.
great. You get tired, but you just not got to learn how to work those matches so they
Yes.
can tell a story and make sense.
Yes, yes, and that's amazing, man. I mean, just in knowing, I can tell that wisdom, that veteranship on you, man. It just drips, bro. Like,
It's
that's.
funny.
Go
Sorry to
ahead,
cut you off. It's
go ahead,
funny that
brother.
you say It's funny you say veteran, man, because that's one thing I tell the interviewer that's interviewing me when they say
Mhm.
former WWE superstar. You know, I
Yeah,
put my time in. It started in 2003. You know, I started wrestling in 2002. My journey with WWE started in 2003, and from 2003 to 2009, out of 75 guys and girls from all over the world, I earned my contract with WWE. So it wasn't
yes,
easy. I had to pay to do a tryout. So I
yes,
know what it's like to, be a weekend warrior, scooping
yes,
ice cream on the weekdays, running an ice cream store so you could wrestle and do tryouts on the weekend.
yes.
So it was something I wanted to do since not only I came out the womb,
Yeah.
but my last sentence in high school in my yearbook said WWF, here I come. So
Mm-hmm.
I pursued it with laser like focus. And,
Yes.
my dream came true May 4th, 2009. Uh, the day I stepped foot inside the training facility at Tampa, Florida, FCW at the time, it was June 25th, 2009, the same day Michael Jackson died. So it's just like all these
Wow.
moments are moments I'll never forget. So from
Yes.
2009 to 2017, I had a long career with WWE that I'm very, very
Mm.
proud of. And
Yes.
that's why I like to call myself a veteran, because former just sounds washed up. You know, you don't say
Yeah. Yeah.
for, former Marine. You don't say that. You say
Yeah.
Marine veteran, you know?
Yes. Yes.
So that whole former sounds washed up to me, because I always say I still got a lot left in the tank. And
Oh yeah.
after this pandemic, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. But
Come
like I say,
on.
I stay ready, so I ain't got to get ready. So health
Come
as
on.
well.
That's true, man. And I love how you said veteran because, you know, from now on, I'm just gonna continue to introduce all of my guests that way, no matter what company. You know what I mean? Like I love how you put that, and that's great because I I've learned and seen how many, you know, even ones that finally get to a main roster, they're all veterans. Every wrestler is a veteran, no matter what company and what
Mm-hmm.
level, because it's so much work put into this, you know. And I've had the pleasure of interviewing indie stars, you know, mainstream stars, like however you put it, man. But your attitude, man, is just so great. You know what I mean? And I love it, man. It, I had the pleasure of interviewing WWE superstar R-Truth earlier in a couple episodes here, and he was just as humble as you, man. I love the humbleness that comes from a lot of superstars that come from that branch like that, man. Just to show, like, you know, I would never have anything bad to say because, you know, you got fans, you know, some fans that internet fans, I guess, you know, IWC, you know, I'm sure you're familiar with them, and just like
Mm-hmm.
how it's just like, man, you know, like it kind of make WWE seem like it's such a you know, a horrible company to work for a lot of times. And I know no company is perfect per se, but
Yes.
like when I hear, you know, superstars like yourself or superstars like Truth and everybody that like really just kind of speak of it in a highlight, you know, no matter where they are, what, you know, what their position is, like it shows, you know, that it's you know, it's the person, you know what I mean, like, you know, the mindset of that person and how they feel, you know, and such positivity coming from you, man, and I love that. Keep that energy going, man, because it's a beautiful thing to see that maturity from you, man, and that veteranship. Like I said, just grinding it out. So let's talk about you know, because it is Pride Month, you know, definitely, and it's very special having you on this episode, you know, because of the fact that I definitely wanted to be able to talk with you about your experience with that. Like, you know, you literally were bragging about a certain amount of superstars that, you know, were comforting and you know, embracing of you in that time. Talk about what that was like, because I did some research and I knew, you know, I knew at that time when you came out, like I knew there were other stars that were prior to you who have come out over the years, like Orlando Jordan and, you know, Pat Patterson, you know, just different superstars from the WWE branch. But what it noted, you know, was that you were actually the first superstar that was currently still signed with the company at the time when you decided to come out, versus those before you who kind of did it a little bit after the fact. You know, what was that experience like for you? What did that do for you? Was there nerves there, or how did that work out?
You know, that's correct. I say I'm not the first and I'm not the last, but I am a trailblazer. And by me being the first openly gay WWE superstar, I've been able to pave the way for other LGBTQ athletes in wrestling and beyond to go after their dreams and not allow the opinions of others to derail them on their journey to greatness.
Yes.
And by coming out first, I've made it a duty for other LGBTQ athletes that they do have a duty to instill confidence in our youth and to lead by example. But coming out wasn't easy. Let me just say, first and foremost, it wasn't easy at all. I came out to my family 2 years before I made my announcement to TMZ, and I think I hit it pretty well. I hit it pretty well in the world 30 years. And just imagine, how old are you?
I'm actually 30 myself, brother. I just turned 30 this
30.
year. Yes, sir.
Just imagine 30 years old, living your life, not being yourself. Having to cut promos like this to make your voice sound more masculine, more deep, you know, because you don't want to be perceived in a certain way.
Yeah.
I don't have to do that anymore. And for the longest, I hid, and I had finally achieved my dreams of being a WWE superstar. But I also found love too, and I had to sacrifice coming out to inspire others to be and accept themselves. I made a huge sacrifice. And I said what I said to TMZ, and I said, when I walked away, I'm like, oh my God, what did I just do? Because at the time, I came out to TMZ when we didn't have a relationship with TMZ. Now TMZ has a relationship because they want to make sure they know what news is breaking. And it is what it is. When you're under WWE's conglomerate, you have to literally abide by their rules or you perish. So when I came out, I didn't think my story was a big deal until, of all people, the icon Cher. You're 30 years old. I think you should know who Cher
Yes,
is.
sir.
She's an icon in the LGBTQ community.
Mm-hmm.
She reached out to me on social media in the DM on Twitter. I screenshot the message. I still have it to this day. And she said, because of her hearing my story, one of her friends who's a big wrestling fan came out. So she thanked me. And it was that minute I realized that my story was a big fucking deal. And that's
Yes.
why I always say daily,
Yes.
don't die with a story and you tell it. So
Yes.
I remember Mark Henry, even before I came out, I was new to the roster. NXT, the first season, all of us up there being hazed like crazy. And Mark Henry looked at me. He's very long-winded, and I'm gonna say to you what Mark Henry said to me. Hey, why you got your hair like that? It makes you look gay, you know that. And when he said that, I'm like, uh, uh, Mark, I'm just trying to look different. I'm just trying to stand out. That stuttering kicked in that I had.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to stand out. And then fast forward to when I came out, he was one of the first people to call me up and say, "Hey, man, SummerSlam weekend in the hotel. Come to the green room." And he said, "Man, how come you didn't tell me?" I was like, "Because I was fearful of you, Mark. Fearful of you." He's like, "Man, I got cousins that are gay. I don't care. You can drop the if I drop the soap, you can come up behind me if you want to." I said, "Mark, please, man, get the heck out of here," you know? So that's the kind of relationship from then on that we had. And from then on, anytime we were in Texas, we didn't have to stay in a hotel. We would stay at Mark Henry's place. And I did all the driving. So I can share the story all I want. I do it all the time on interviews. I said, "Mark, I can talk crap about you all I want because I drove you around for almost 5 years. It was me doing all the driving, me, Titus, and Mark Henry. I did all the driving. And when Mark Henry started, he was driving Big Yoko around. So he would always tell us about all the stories him driving around Yoko. During the live events on the afternoon, he had to drive and get some chicken for Yoko. So I said, "Mark, I drove you around. I can say whatever I want about you." So I share these stories because we've all said something that we probably didn't mean to say or wasn't thinking clearly. But yeah, Mark and I are like tight, very tight.
Yeah. He gets a lot of as another vet, he gets a lot of praise. I noticed from just so many wrestlers, both current and former, just all around, like who literally just love the attitude he carries, man. And it's just dope when you do your haze, and I'm pretty sure you probably had some rookies in there in the coming up at your time, that literally you would be like, "Hey, man, I'm a hazy, but it's love."
Oh no, not me. No,
Oh,
not
not
me.
you.
I'm that guy in the locker room. Everyone like me. I'm very quiet unless you say something that triggers me. I remember Hornswoggle, and I share this story too. Before I came out, I had a hard hat for Mr. No Days Off on the back of my trunks, and we were in the locker room. He's like, "What's that on the back of your trunks? A gay hard hat?" And I just lost it in the locker room. I said, "Hey, I got to keep it PG. I got god babies around." But I said, "Hey, man, don't you ever talk to me like that. I'm one of the nicest ones here in the locker room. Don't you ever say that." And I just stormed out. No one said anything. So this is before I came out. So like, if the situation happens like that, I'm gonna call you out on it. But I was always well liked and very shy, very quiet amongst my peers.
Yeah, I can tell, man. I mean, you can just tell that you're a very likable and respected guy in the locker room, man. But it's dope to see that also it's like, hey, man, don't take my likeness for granted, man. Like I have a side where if I have to speak my mind, I will speak it. So what I would love to know is you mentioned being a trailblazer, and that's always important, and I'd like to bring up two particular
I
figures.
see that WrestleMania sign.
Oh
I see
yeah,
I see
yeah.
what y'all
You
gonna
know,
put on the hat.
I gotta always rep it, man. You know, I'm a
Yeah.
big wrestling fan. I gotta get more